Hey everyone, it's Dan and Don coming to you from theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Once again, that website address is www.theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Today we are graciously joined by Eugene. Greg's coming to us all the way from Boston. He works for the Fenway Institute. They're a clinical trials company out there. They focus on HIV studies, amongst other things. And Greg's going to tell you a lot more about himself, what organizations he's involved with. Greg is a clinical trial recruiter, amongst a few other things that he's going to talk to us about. He's got a unique perspective on clinical trials, on recruitment, on African American participation in clinical trials, and many more things. So without further ado, an introduction, because I can't possibly describe how awesome this guy is. Greg, welcome to the show, and let us know a little bit about yourself, man.
Hey guys, what's up? Well, I'm actually kind of excited about this whole new technology piece because I am totally computer illiterate. So I'm just kind of enjoying having this experience. But I want to also back up and remind or just add to what you said in that I work for, the contract that I have is through the Fenway Institute, which is the agency that gets the contract, but they subcontracted to the agency that I work for, which is the Multicultural AIDS Coalition, and the executive director is Gary Daffin. So it's a partnership, it's a collaboration that happens, and I've been added onto the piece because of my, one of my friends called me the alley cat. And at one point, I can take offense with alley cat, but the other side of it is no. I know the nooks and crevices. I've been there. I've done most of the stuff that folk are doing, and I always say, but by the grace of God, there go I. I don't do recovery. I don't do that kind of piece, but I know that I have to monitor my behaviors. And the biggest thing that is saving my life is being of service. Finding a way to not put the focus on me, but finding a way to, particularly with these clinical trials, is finding a way to, when I'm trying to get people involved, is to show them how you're being of service. So me telling them that this is what we're doing, and then by your participating, you're being of service, that's the big thing. Now, the one other piece I want to add here is that folk have had a real trial of tribulations in America. We have that whole Tuskegee thing that happened, and the big thing that happened is when you are not in the power position, when you can't definitively talk about what the vaccines are or what you're being exposed to, most people say, no, I'm not dealing with this. I don't know how sensitive we are, but I really need to just talk. But like most brothers say, fuck that shit. I am not trying to get there. I'm not trying to go with nobody sticking me with no needles, injecting me with anything. I don't know what the fuck they're trying to put up in. No, and that's real. Because I mean, as you look at the power structure, who knows what's really going on? I have a wonderful relationship at Fenway Institute. Ken Mayers is our PI and the principal investigator, that is, and he is, the premier person on this project. And just based on the relationships that I've had with him in terms of little gatherings that we've had or meetings that we've had, I can feel his heart. I can feel his spirit. So I can't imagine that he would be a part of some clandestine kind of activity that's designed to take advantage or to exploit black men. I just can't imagine that. So that's my gig now, is to meet black men. I mean, my new gig actually is I need people across the board, women, men, black, white. But I initially started this gig recruiting black men. And as I meet a black man now and try to get him enrolled in these clinical studies, I have to be very careful about how I let him know that, look, this is something that really has credibility up the ranks. And then the only challenge now is to prove that to them, because once again, you look at somebody standing and say, yeah, right, because you're getting a goddamn paycheck. You're going to tell me any fucking thing. So how do you prove to them that, no, what I'm saying has a lot of credibility? It's a challenge. It's a challenge, but that's where I'm at. I think I've babbled on.
No,
let's go.
We love the enthusiasm. I mean, this is what this blog is about. It's honesty, authentic information. People need to know what's really going on there with clinical trials. So now, you specifically recruit for HIV studies, or do you do other
Okay,
things?
let me explain.
Okay.
We have a thing called, well, first of all, international is an agency called the Family Health International, and they get the money to do clinical trials around the country, Taiwan, Vietnam, all over, Africa, different places.
Okay.
The clinical trial that we were attached to was HV06. I'm not saying it exactly right, but it was a clinical trial called the Brotherhood Project, and it was initiated in 6 cities: San Francisco, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Washington, D.C., Chicago, Boston, New York, and New York. New York actually had 2 sites.
Mm-hmm.
In those cities, the gig was to recruit 250 men, bring them into a study. These are men who are HIV positive and negative, do a behavioral kind of analysis on them. And at the end of the study, which was a year long, once you enrolled, you had to come back at least 3 times at minimum. Well, 3 times depending on what you shared and what we needed to get from you. But the point was, this was a study that it's wrapping up now. It's been going on, and so that was my initiation. I was brought in we subcontracted. Fenway subcontracted to the MAC. They hired me to be a liaison, and so my gig was to go find these black men, bring them in. I think I did a good job. I think I brought at least a third of the men into the study. I mean, we did media, we did all those other things, but just my going into shelters and going to social places and what have you, I think I brought it. I mean, I may be overstating it, and not for my ego, but just to say that I was on the block.
In Boston, right? This is all in Boston.
Just in Boston. I mean, okay. In each city they had their own staff.
Right.
But you like to say, I've just got this, thing for figuring out a way to help black men figure out how to navigate the system. And so this was an ideal opportunity for me to do that.
I want to back up for a minute. I want to say this earlier. One of the key things you hit on that's successful, most recruiters don't get, and that's the fact that your approach is to help. And you take that approach, and that's what allows you to connect with people, because you approach them with the fact that I'm here to help you. I'm not just here to get you in a study, and like you were saying before, some people look at you, so you're just here to get a paycheck. But when people can generally feel that you're here to help, they're going to connect with you more. And that's where it comes to building that trust. Am I right?
I agree with you. And when I say help, it's not like I'm in a better position. It's not like a big I and a little you. Mm-hmm. It's like I've got something that will benefit you, I think, perhaps. So let me introduce it to you. And the joy that I have, yes, what you're saying is, yes, I know that what I'm doing is bringing something that is going to actually broaden your paradigm. It's going to give you a larger scope on something. It's going to benefit you health-wise. So yeah, that's the gig for me. But like I say, that's the challenge in that is for me to just walk up to you and say, I've got something, and I'm being very altruistic about it. Is for you to look and say, yeah, what the fuck? No, through bullshit. There's an agenda. You're obviously something you want. And so the point is, there may not be anything as altruism, because the fact that I do what I do is because it makes me feel good. So that may even minimize, that may even take out the altruistic definition, and that I'm doing it because I get something out of it.
Right. Now, when you were working with men in the black community, what did you find to be the most challenging?
Thank you for going right there. Let me tell you something. I'm a same-gender loving man. I love black men coming and going, up and down. I like white men too, don't get me wrong. I like black men coming and going. And let me tell you why I like them so much. First, I was a black man. I was born with black men. And then the second thing is that I get the history. I get what happened in the Middle Passage. I get what happened coming out of Africa. I get the whole African kind of pieces that we've had to deal with. And being in a country now where we are in a white, kind of dominated culture, I get white men, white women, black men, and that black men in a lot of ways find themselves at the bottom of this pecking order. So on the one hand, I mean, well, I don't actually, I want to say this right, buy into it that way necessarily. I feel fabulous and fierce just because God has given me life. I know that is a big issue confronting a lot of black men. So let me make the point. The point that I'm going to is that as I meet black men and I realize that they have a hard time figuring out their relationship to the bigger picture, my gig is always to try to find a way to show or say something to let you know that you are a child of God too. And I don't care if you've got a mansion and you've got $1 million or you're sitting under a bridge in Atlanta. You are a child of God as long as you think and know that in your head. But the minute that you start thinking or conceiving yourself somewhere else, then that's where you are. It's back to the thing of heaven and hell being right here. It's not out there somewhere. So what are black men going through? I am so believing, I have a script called Masculinity. Maskulinty. And what we're doing in that script is first affirming, declaring and celebrating black men who have sex with men. Because the one thing that we have found out in this study is that black men are not going to talk about it under no circumstances. It ain't your business. And I'm going to tell you, for the brothers that I speak with and deal with, the first thing coming out, yo man, this is between us. Don't be. And I say, yeah, but who else am I going to tell? Who am I going to tell? Who would I want to tell it to? But the piece that's more important is that becomes the code of ethics. We're doing what we do. It's between me and you. Don't discuss it with anybody else. And I said, brothers will go to their grave. But the thing that turns that around is when, and particularly in this study, we paid up to like $275. You tell a brother, come on in. This is confidential. We're not allowed to tell your business to anybody else. We're covered by an IRB, which is an internal review board, which monitors how we do this. So when they come in, we make it clear this is confidential, and we're going to give you $75 for your first visit, and we'll give you some more. Brothers tend to relax and begin to tell you, and that's what we found, that brothers then finally tell, black men begin to start telling you, yeah, I've had sex. You know, when I smoke a little crack, or yeah, have me a drink, or yeah, and let the motherfucker suck my dick, and then they'll tell you what they did, you know. And the thing is that there's a lot of shame that comes with that. I know that. I know that a lot of brothers are that. But the fact is that I think we came up in a culture where sex has been taught to us as being a dirty thing. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember, but sex is like doing the nasty. Sex is doing something wrong. And here, back to the thing, and I'm going to go off a little bit, so let me indulge me here. The Virgin Mary had this virgin baby. So there was no sex involved. And I'm like, something's not quite registering with me for that. So can y'all please back that up? Tell me she had sex in a very wonderful, holistic way, but don't tell me the sperm was floating around in the air. She got impregnated. So sometimes just with the introduction that we get to heterosexual sex, same gender sex becomes even more of a problem. And so and then the Bible has these things in there where they tell you that it's wrong for men to be having sex with men. My piece is this, and I can't back it up as we're sitting here talking, but we are sexual beings. And there are different purposes of sexual gratification. One is to perhaps just release attention, as in playing tennis, as in swimming, as in having some sex. The other one is procreation, and we're clear about that. We would not be doing what we're doing if there was not that connection. So I guess I'm just trying to expand the sexual agenda and making sure that young people hear about it. But the good thing that's happening here in Boston is we have same-gender marriage laws now, and 6 other states too. And so young people, I think in 20 years, are not going to be as restricted or limited in thinking about it's okay to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. I know with a boyfriend I'm going to do this, with a girlfriend I'm going to do that. And I'm just out there on that. Bring me back, guys. Tell me.
No, Greg, we appreciate the passion and the enthusiasm. I watched the masculinity piece you did. Don, you should watch it. It's entertaining, man. As a heterosexual male, it's entertaining. So you guys can learn a lot from it, but I got a lot of good clinical trial related things from there, like bits and pieces here and there. Specifically, you mentioned in the African American community, you know, how it's kind of taboo to be homosexual. And
well, let me interrupt real quick. Not taboo, it is taboo to talk about it.
Right.
In the black community, we created what Bill Clinton finally formalized: don't ask, don't tell.
Right.
I knew when I grew up, I saw lesbians, I saw queens and boys, but you don't talk about it. Don't put no focus on it. It doesn't get any more attention than somebody who's handicapped. That's your thing. But in the culture that we're in now, you know, with all the act up kind of stuff, it's in your face. I'm gay. And so people are put in a position where they have to respond. But I know from what I came through, it was called don't ask, don't tell.
Yeah.
When I was 6 years old, just real quick, my mother, we lived in a project, and it was like 10 apartments on the floor, and there was always some conflict with families. This one, and I was, at one point, I think I was in the middle of I must have done something that got everybody in a tizzy. But they were arguing. My mother was arguing with some other woman about something. And this woman said to her mother, take your little sissy son on back in the house. And my mother said, well, that's my sissy. Now, I didn't know what that meant then. But as I'm hearing it now, I was like, wow. What kind of behavior was I demonstrating when I was this little bitty boy? And I must have been like 5, 6, or 7. But as I think about it now, I realize that black folk, I think, embrace whatever you were doing. If you were an addict, or if you were a faggot, or a drug, whatever your issue was, we embraced it. It was never put on the front burner the way that the gay life has been put on the front burner now, where we're confronting people. Go ahead.
Let me ask you this. You think a lot of it's because in the black communities too, we typically had to deal with things on our own. We typically didn't go to counseling. We didn't go to, even a lot of issues. I know as a kid, it wasn't that often that I would go to the doctor unless it was something severe, like appendicitis or something like that. We didn't always have those accesses, and it was things that you usually took care of at home. And it stayed in, and as you were saying, it stayed in the home. The other thing I think about as I'm listening to you, because I grew up Baptist, and I don't have anything to do with it, but I wonder if the church has a lot to do with it too, to influence, because the church in a lot of black communities had a lot to do with what went on in the black communities. What do you think about that as far as influencing what's going on?
You are exactly on the point about what I'm saying, is that you go to any church, you see the minister and the deacon and the choir member, and you see boys who are doing boys. But it's not talked about. And as long as that's not out there, it's okay. And so the problem that I'm having now is, not the problem, let me go back to what you said first, is that when you have access to resources, as in a therapist, a psychologist, somebody you can talk to get it out, that's the way of processing, going through it and getting it out. A lot of what we do is stuck, and people act out in certain kind of ways. So yeah, I think that the big thing that happens for black folk, and I should say oppressed people, I can't think of, Pedro Ferreira, I think, wrote a book on this. Oppressed people start imploding. A lot of stuff that normally, you know, they get out of them goes inside, so they end up drinking and drugging and partying and self-destructing because they're not able to get it out. Yes, I think that's a big part of it. And like I said, I'm back to the Bible. I think the Bible really does make a lot of illusions to there's something being wrong. Well, people will tell you the Bible makes a lot of illusions to there's something being wrong with men having sex with men. But at the end of the day, sex is just another comforting tool. I mean, this thing with men having sex with men is so bad that two men can't even just hold each other, rub each other's back, do a massage without it having all kinds of sexual connotations and being more than that. Women do it all the time. Women have learned that they can talk and emotionally release. So that's a real concern. Now, the one thing that I'm doing right now that I'm hoping to develop more is the whole prison life is totally different. These boys get it in prison. I mean, there are boys in prisons who are out there. They snap their fingers and let you know, I'm the lady and I'm the girl and I'm serving it like that. And there's no, and we're talking about sexual dynamics. Sexual dynamics is the tops and bottom. Who's going to do the fucking, who's going to do the receiving? Who's going to be the man, who's going to be the girl? But that's a culture in prison. And these men are living it every day. The piece that we're dealing with is when those guys come outside the prison and have to come back into the real world, they have to put on all kind of masks to be who they are. And that's what my piece is about, masculinity. is let's
Okay.
talk about whatever you've done sexually based on getting high, because once you start drinking and drugging, another sensibility might kick in. Okay, you've done it. But that doesn't, you still are a child of God, you still are a worthwhile person, and you are entitled to have an opinion. As opposed to running away, hiding, feeling less than, feeling intimidated with. And that's what we found out in this study. Is a lot of men, based on us giving them money, will tell us that. But they basically will never own up to it because it didn't give them the status or give them any kind of prestige in the community.
Right. Now, how long have you been recruiting for clinical trials?
I've been the clinical trial that I'm recruiting for is Project SOS. Again, the national term, the name is the Brotherhood Project. It's a part of the Family Health International. In Boston, I'm with the Fenway Institute and the Multicultural AIDS Coalition. I've been recruiting for this for the past 3 years. It was a 3-year study. So my contract is actually up at the end of this month. And then this month, but they've just expanded my gig. They've given me a lateral promotion. So now I'll be recruiting for men, women, black and white. I was just recruiting for black men, so they've asked me to now do recruitment for the larger population because that's the new contracts that are coming down.
Now, you guys were saying one of the focus that we were just talking about is involving HIV studies. Are you seeing a lot of new medications coming out for that?
Yeah, my brother. Yes. At first, there's all the, and I'm not as up on it as I should be, but I'm HIV positive. I'm actually considered full-blown AIDS. So I'm on a regimen that I take, and I'm undetectable, and my viral load is my viral load is undetectable. My T cell count is up to like 500. I mean, the norm is like 900, but 500 is still a good place to be.
Okay.
So, but the new piece that's out there is called iPrep. It's post and pre-prophylaxis, meaning there's things that you can do before you have sex. If you know you're about to go have some unprotected sex, there's something you can take so that you don't get it. And then there's something if you've been infected, if you've gotten drunk and high, next thing you know, you had all this great sex, because you did great. When you do it that way, it's good. And it's just bad after you look back and say, oh my God, I really did that. But when you go into the post kind of stuff that people do, it's called post-prophylaxis. And there's something you can take afterwards that you take so that if you were infected or exposed, you can take a pill and it then minimizes, eliminates, or whatever it does. So yes, that's the new medication stuff that's going on.
Have they talked, because I don't know a lot about the studies because of my focus has been, like I said, over in those studies that affect the brain. Are they looking at any medications that might completely eradicate it, or is just pretty much controlled?
Well, no, that's always the goal. Just like common cold, they're always trying to find something to get rid of it, to stop it, so that you can't, like polio. Let me give you a shot so that you can never be infected by it again.
Okay.
Yes, that's the ultimate goal. Right now, they're only so far as saying we know now how to minimize its multiplication.
Gotcha.
We take this pill and it'll stop it from growing. So that's where it's at.
Okay.
Now, I had a question regarding study compensation. And the people who join your studies, are they typically people seeking money, or is it a combination of better treatment and money? Or, I mean, which one do they want more? Do they want the better treatment, or do they want the money? Which one is it?
You know what? It's called survival. And the one way that you survive in America is being able to go someplace and buy you some food, or go in your backyard and pick you some food, but you got to have access to things. And the one way to have access is what? Money. I mean, and that's actually the big piece that scares me now about where things are at. Young people have forgotten that there's a whole spiritual connection to life. There's just a whole internal thing that whether you got $1 million or you got $1, you still are fabulous and fierce because you're thinking the right thoughts, you're doing the right things, you're eating the best foods that you can. But yeah, we're in a culture that's dominated by the dollar. It's called money. And so you are right now. You can most people, if you got $1 million and you've been exposed to, you've had it, it immediately makes you feel as though you have a heads up. You are a better person than somebody who's on welfare. So yeah, that's my piece about it. The peace masculinity grew out of that. These men would come into the rooms and they would tell us their sexual exploits because at the end of the day, they were getting money. But in my mind, I said this. It wasn't just that. Brothers want to talk about that shit. Because, first of all, the sex is, you don't do nothing that hurts. Like, you don't put your hand in fire and keep it there if it's burning and it's hurting you. Sex is a wonderful thing. And if you've been with the right kind of man, and I'm going to tell you, I'm one of them. So I know, once you've been with a brother who knows how to do you, you've been done. Have you ever seen about women doing women? If your woman ever gets with another woman, because women understand those sensitive zones, those places to go, those things to touch. So I'm just saying that for the men, and I only do men who are, I have a heart, and this is I'm in therapy for this. I don't do queenie kind of guys. I don't do girly kind of boys. And I like men who are very clear about what our sexual thing is going to be. But once we are there, then the party is on. And there's no questions about whether we enjoy it. It's like, it's like heaven. And like I say, heaven is right here. The problem is that once you walk out of the room, and I got to go back and face the world, and I just had this great, wonderful, euphoric experience with this guy, what do I do with it? And I get it. That's what my piece talks about. I get it. You're not supported in the bigger world for having an experience that turns you on, that you enjoy.
So from your experiences, the people who join these studies, they get some kind of relief from actually telling the truth, and is that what you're saying?
Okay, so I'm jumping out there. Yes, I am jumping out there. I'm saying yes. These brothers, I think first, and I can only ask, this is an internal process. I know for me, when I get it outside of me, there's a sense of relief. I don't feel as overwhelmed, as pressured. So yes, I'm saying that I think when brothers can come, these black men who've come into this study, and they've been able to answer questions and been able to say, yeah, I had this kind of sex, and I did this, and I did that, and I did that. There's a certain sense of relief. Yes, there's a certain sense of guilt too, because you've had to admit it, and you're in a society that tells you it's wrong. But I really believe that a lot of these guys feel a certain sense of joy of being able to go somewhere confidentially. We say it's a confidential thing, so nobody's going to hear about it. So now I can tell you exactly what I've been through. I don't have to lie about this. I can tell you exactly. And then at the end of the day, guess what? I get paid. Yeah, man, I did. Yeah. Now the other piece that you have is brothers will do it, and they probably will lie. Yeah, man, I fucked this motherfucker. I did that. So they know they got $75 at the end of the day. But I think that there's very far and few in between. And I'm here in Boston. I'm just going to tell you, from the journey that I've been on, I lived in Long Beach. I've lived in Atlanta. I've lived in New York. I've lived in Chicago. I'm here in Boston now. I've met men, and I am very specific about the man that I deal with. The only thing that bothers me is that I've always ended up with some woman's husband. You know what I'm saying? Somebody, yeah. It's like, and it's like, but because a lot of men will do those kind of dances that they have to do to be accepted, but they still like the other kind of party.
Now, what's the age group of men that you were working with? There was a typical 18 to 55, or? Well,
18 was the minimum age, but you can be. We never had anybody take past 55, 60. But yeah.
What was? Did you see more of the younger group, let's say 18 to 30, or did you see more 30 to?
Good question. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I would suspect that we saw more between 25 and 35, because that's kind of like the age where, let's just say, what you're young and full of cum.
Yeah.
The guys are very sexually active and wanting to explore and do things. Yeah, I think that was kind of the age group. I mean, that you can, and I mean, that's just go out here now. If you guys do any kind of observation of what's going on sexually, that's the age where you're sort of at a peak.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So you're not going to running into too many young guys that know much about the Tuskegee experiment, or even some of the things that I guess John Hopkins also had some issues
Exactly.
with
Good point. No, you're absolutely right. Because people tend not to remember history. I met people up there who just didn't even know who Martin Luther King was. Yeah.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Let's get into that.
Exactly.
Let's get into that a little bit, and we'll of course come back to homosexuality and stuff. But you're in a unique situation because you're recruiting African Americans, which is already a minority for clinical trials, and then homosexuals. So it's like a minority within a minority. But let's go to the level of African Americans in clinical trials. Do you notice a certain distrust from the African American community in clinical trials, or is it identical to, let's say, Caucasian?
No, I don't think it's identical to Caucasians, because what happens is that if I walk into a room and you've asked me to say or do something for you, and I look at you and I see me, meaning I see somebody who's dressed like I dress, who talks like I talk, who sounds, I'm going to be a little more trusting to take my clothes off, give you information, share. If I walk into a room and you are Asian, or you got a big gash in it, then, so I'm just saying, no, the clinical trials and all those things are pretty much dominated by a white paradigm. And that's the big piece, is how do we now include everybody else, because we want everybody to be involved. But until you start putting black folk or Asian folk or any other minority people in positions of power, then people are still going to always be quite, well, I'm not sure if this really is of my best interest. You know, I mean, it's back to the thing of the discrimination thing. I get why you can go into an agency and get all white men or white women running it, because when I have to hire somebody, I'm going to hire somebody who I think who gets me, who has the same kind of values, who listens, who appreciates the kind of things that I do. So, if I can't barely speak your language, or if we just come from different kind of geographical places, why would I bring you and put you in a management position where I'm asking you to give me reports that's going to be the foundation of how this thing works? So I can get, I don't think the discrimination happens just based on a racist kind of thing, but just based on survival. And if I'm trying to survive, I'm going to make sure I put some people in who get me, who can then respond to things in a way that I would respond to them. So back to clinical trials, yes. I think right now, that's a part of my gig. Thank you for going there. They've actually asked me to now not just focus on men who have sex with men, but women, white men. So I'm all over the map now, and I'm good at it, because at the end of the day, this was good because I just love the human race. And the one thing that I love about whoever you are is I like the fact that I can speak my truth, you speak your truth, and neither one of us have to win. But both of us have had an opportunity to express where we're at.
Right.
Now, and that, at the end of the day, that's all that needs to be done.
Yeah, you speak with a lot of conviction, which is good. And it's an indication you believe in what you're doing. And that comes across.
It's my life. You know, it's kind of like the one thing that has happened is that I get paid to wake up and go out and just live my life. And they actually said it to me in so many ways. I mean, at one point they were, give us your monthly schedule, tell us where you're going to be, what you're going to be doing, what hours you're going to be in the office. They don't ask me anymore, because they know that I live outside of Boston, I live by the beach, and I have a nice little life out there. But I come into Boston, and they know that when I'm in, I don't care if I'm on the train, if I'm in the subways, or wherever I'm at, if I see, particularly when I was doing this Project SOS thing, and it had part to do with a selfish intent too, because I see a beautiful brother, I'm like, oh Lord, I need to speak to him. I need to say something to him, and then of course I would always just go right to the gig. Look, we got to study. This is what we're doing. You might be interested. But I'm saying that I get paid to just wake up, walk the streets, live my life, and then, and the reason that they know it works is because people showed up. People call and say, I met this brother in the train, I met him in the bathroom, I met him at the gym, and he told me about this study, so I'm here.
Oh, I was gonna say, I have, for those listening, I have the Fenway Institute's website in front of me here. So Project SOS, let me just tell you, it's called Saving Ourselves. Is that right?
Project Saving Life. You know, the SOS is actually the nautical term. Like when the ship was in distress,
right.
they would always SOS.
Yeah.
That's what that's for. Yeah.
And it says, let me find it here. There are more new HIV infections in black, gay, and bisexual men than in any other group of gay and bisexual men. Do you want to help our community address this problem? And then it goes into the study specifics. So you are directly involved with that project, but you will also start recruiting for other projects, right?
Yeah, I'm recruiting now for a Project Gel. Project Gel is a medication that you can use that you put inside your anus so that it stops the bacterial infection. So it's a new study, yeah.
And
Project Gel.
not just, that one is all any race, right? Not just African American.
It's any race. That's my point. They've given me because I've gotten a promotion laterally to now black men, white men, whomever. And so yeah, this is Project Gel. It's for men between 18 and 30, I believe, or maybe 18 to 50. And then there's another project, Project S505, and I can't give you the particulars on that. But yeah, my gig now is meeting men, women, whomever. And let me tell you something that I've actually suggested, because here in Boston, I serve on two statewide committees. One of them is called the Massachusetts Prevention Planning Group. It's a group of providers across the state. We come together once a month to talk about the issues. Then I work on, and as the Massachusetts Prevention Planning Group, I am now a representative to the statewide CAB, which is the consumers group. I guess the point I want to make is that the gig is to make sure that we in a forum is talking about the issues that goes on in our communities. And the most important thing for me here is that the dynamics are different in black and white communities. I mean, again, in our black communities, there's things that we just don't talk about, things that we have phobias about, things that we don't know, just information that we haven't received. And so I feel like my job now is to figure out a way to regurgitate or paraphrase or speak it in a language that people in the hood can hear. Because like the vaccines and all that it's really like that's a white boy thing. That's what white boys deal with it. That ain't got nothing to do with me.
Right, right. Some of the things I heard back to the whole recruiting thing, and I can relate to. One of the good things is that you have someone that understands that to be a successful recruiter, you can't have any Janes on you, so to speak. And it sounds like whoever you're working with is allowing you to do what you need to do. They know you get results. Am I correct?
That's exactly what I'm saying. I mean, like I said, first of all, I'm 57 years old. I got diagnosed when I was in '96. I had, up to that time, I had been in New York and I had auditioned for all the Broadway shows. I had gotten a few jobs. I did things like Bobby Brown Sugar and Hair, and I did some shows that got me a little money and put me out there, but none of it that put me, out as a major performer. But I was able to be in the community and meet some very dynamic people. At '96, when I found that I was positive, everybody around me was dying. I mean, literally. You wake up, you hear Michael Bennett, just all kind of people were dying because of this virus. And so I was at a place where it's me next. I'm next. But as you can see, I'm still sitting here. And so I'm just getting back to my theater piece. But up until that time, I was getting disability. I had I'm very low maintenance. I don't need a lot of materialistic stuff to enjoy this life. So I had a good life. I came back to work on this gig because it was just a perfect fit. It was like, do this job, just wake up, go and do what you enjoy doing. So it was like, let me pay you to go out there and meet black men and give them something. And so that's what I'm doing. Yeah. So that put me back at work.
Good, good. I know when I was doing recruitment too, the guys that I worked for this one company, they allowed me to move the same way you did. And I was very successful for them. My numbers were extremely high because I'd have days where I'd leave the house at 6 and wouldn't get home till 11, 12 at night because I took care of what I needed to take care of. There are days I may work 4 hours, but I get a lot done. There are days I didn't, like I said, working 17, 18 hours until I accomplished what I felt I needed to accomplish, and these guys allowed me to do that. as soon as they sold the company and left, people that stepped in charge wanted to start putting all these chains on me, and they wanted me to report every hour what I did. And I tried to explain to them I don't have time for that. If you want me to continue to be successful, let me do what I ask. So, and it was a good paying gig. I can't complain. I was making great money. I walked away from it. I told them, you know what? I give you my 30-day notice and I'm out of here.
But let me tell you something, and that's a piece. I think I may have had a minute, and I'm literally a minute, where somebody dared question what I do. And I said, well, why don't we do this? Why don't you just come on and hang out with me? Let's just come out with me and meet me. I'll be in the city at 8 o'clock. Get on the train, meet me here, and then we're just going to go through my day until you can see.
Thank you.
And by the time, and so it was like on the train, I met 5 or 6 people. When I got off the train and went to there's a community center that I go to, it's called the Boston Living Center. I met 10 or 15 people. Then when I left there on the street, on the way back to the train, I met 4 or 5 other people. Then I got on the train and I said, you know what, if you really want me to, if you really question first of my integrity in doing the job, I shouldn't be here. I think that's the biggest piece first. If you got to question my integrity, this is not a fit. It's not a fit. Because first, I didn't have to go back to work. That's the piece I should say. I did not have to, because God is so good, man. When I was young, I got exposed to a lot of beautiful, materialistic things. And finally you realize that stuff it's very shallow. Mm-hmm. There's just a spiritual kind of groundedness to life and who you are that matters. It's Henry Thoreau who wrote about that. All of that stuff is just more drama for your life. You know, all you need is some water, a place to crap, something to eat, and a book or something to read or something to keep you engaged. And so I guess the point I'm making is that, yes, I have gotten to a point where I realize that I love all of that stuff. And if I had to choose between rich and poor, I would choose rich in a dime. But at the same, I'd rather be rich and miserable than poor and happy, perhaps. I don't know. Let me say that right. If I was poor and happy, would I choose that over being rich and miserable? I think that no. I would prefer to be poor and happy, because at the end of the day you realize that money is not the end all in life. And I don't know if you guys have ever experienced death, right? Like I had a friend just in the last 2 months who died literally right next to me. And I can tell you that he had no money, but I know that he died happy based on just the things that he was doing. Not that he was doing things that were so credible, but when his family asked me what happened, I said, believe me, your brother died happy. He was doing what made him happy, not based on somebody else's expectations of what they thought he should be doing.
Yeah, Warren Buffett said it best. He said, I've been rich and poor, and trust me, rich is better. That's what he said. So,
I love Warren Buffett too. I love no, it is. It really is. But you know, I wonder if Warren Buffett and we were talking now, I say, would you rather be rich and miserable, or would you rather be poor and happy? Now, indeed, he might say rich and miserable, because I guess there are a lot of resources and things you have access to. But as I'm sitting here and not having really had that kind of viewpoint, I would really think that the joy of life is feeling good right where you're at, in your space. Fine, I can walk out it right now and jump in a Maserati or jump in a Jaguar or go across the street and spend $1,000 on some good wine. But if I'm miserable, what does that mean, as opposed to if I can sit there right now and just find a certain sense of completeness?
Right.
Eckhart Tolle writes about this. Eckhart Tolle speaks to the now, because we don't have 5 minutes from now. We don't have the next minute. Right now, all we have is right here. And the thing is, how do you make this moment, everything that you want it to be? How do you find heaven right here? Because most people, I can't wait till I get to heaven. When I get $1 million, I'm going to be happy. And I'm like, well, I don't think you'll ever be happy. Because happiness is right now. It's right where you're at. This is my armchair therapy, so psychology.
And I'm not going to go too much into that, but just to add to it, what it really comes down to is whether or not you attach yourself to a lot of material things or not. Because the way I see it, when you attach yourself to a lot of material things, that's what weigh you down.
Exactly.
When you really don't have concern for those things, whether you have them or not, is not a big deal. You move around a lot freely, and to me, that's what freedom is all about: is being able to move without being locked down on anything.
Exactly.
Greg, let's get into some advice. We got advice first for the study participants, okay, and then I want some advice for the study professionals, maybe people looking to get involved in clinical trials as a career, and then I want advice for African Americans. So let's start with the first one. Just people interested in participating in clinical trials in general. How do you, as a recruiter, introduce them to the concept of clinical trials? Not necessarily black, white, gay, straight, just a person in general. How do you introduce them to that concept?
I basically say to them that, what's very important for you to understand is that the only way that we're going to get well is to have medication, or part of it is having medication. And the only way that those medication works is that if we try it out. And so, yes, we're asking you to be a guinea pig. But a part of being a guinea pig is that you're going to be actually helping or serving mankind on a large scale. And so, I mean, it really does, it's a difficult piece, because you have to convince a person that what they're doing is bigger than themselves. This is going to benefit other people. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like trying to find different kind of analogies, different kind of parallels that a person can see that if you do this, you're going to help somebody over here. You help your nephew, your son. So so I don't have a definitive answer. I just usually I'm going to be very honest with you, and this is probably not the best way to say it. It's usually a seduction. I end up having to seduce a person to just feel my energies, to feel that I'm coming to you from a place of sincerity, and know that when you do this, you're doing something that's going to be bigger than both of us, or bigger than yourself. Makes any sense at all?
Very, very honest answer. Don, you got anything to add to that?
No, not at all.
Let's get into advice for fellow people considering a career in clinical trials, specifically recruitment. What does it take to be a good recruiter? Obviously, you're an excellent recruiter. What does it take to succeed?
First, I'm going to preface by saying that I'm not sure if I have the answer, because I think that I can only speak from my personal experience of, first of all, having a compassion for life, having a compassion, having a love of mankind. And if, for example, you've been raised to think that the only way that you are a worthy person is to have a college degree, and not just a college degree, but an Ivy League degree, and not just an Ivy League degree, but you must be magna cum laude, and then if you are raised, then you're going to have a hard time having some compassion, concern, and love for somebody who has not even finished high school. So I think that there has to be some kind of human appreciation of life. The minute that you get stuck in those kind of paradigms, then you're somewhere else. But once you can understand that God is about, you are not, there's no, again, back to what I said earlier, no big eyes, no little U's. We are all just humans beings. We're just having a dance on this planet, and your dance is to do what you need to do to feel good about yourself and not hurt anybody else.
I get the sense, and it's obvious, from our interview that, you do very well because you're very passionate, number one, about, well, like you say, humanity in general, but specifically African Americans and gay and bisexual. Would you do as well, let's say you were recruiting for an asthma study? Do you have to be passionate about it, or do you have some kind of learned skill?
Well, let me say something. Your partner just said that about doing the brain piece or whatever it was. It's like I wanted to say, well, what is the personal connection that you made to that helps you to sell it? I mean, like, I can sell something that I've experienced.
Right.
Yes, you know what? I feel like this. While right now HIV is a personal issue, it's what I know, and black men are what I know. I like people. I like people, first of all, when I don't have to hide who I am. When I come to you and don't feel like I've got to try to be macho, butch, and so when I meet women, when I meet whoever, I come like I'm coming to you. I'm not, I I had this issue. Don't believe me. When I was younger and I knew that I enjoyed the kind of sex that I did, I had a hard time meeting people and looking them in the eye and being honest about who I was. But at 57 now, it's like, fuck you. This is who I am. And not fuck you in a way that I'm putting you down, but if you don't get my love and my purity, then that's on you. Because I know that I'm not bringing anything but love. And so, yeah, I think that that's a big thing for people to first get, is that you've got to embrace yourself. You got to embrace that the goodness that God has given you, and to know what your purpose is. And I can't say that I know what my purpose is in totality, but a part of it is what we're doing now, which is to talk, to speak on, and share what your experiences has been. Because I know that there's so many brothers. I mean, when you look at these basketball players and these football players and the way that we photograph folk and all of the videos and things, it's a very sexual culture. Boy, I mean, how can you not be turned on to some of these beautiful men and women that are out here? The thing that happens with a lot of these brothers, they don't know what to do with it. Wow, this motherfucker is really turning me on. So then what you end up doing is, okay, well, I got to express it this way. As opposed to, no, this guy turned me on and now my dick is getting hard or whatever it is. You can't do it. I know it's not a norm. But those are the places. Here, there's a woman named Joycelyn Elders. She was the Attorney General with Bill Clinton. And she came to Bill Clinton when HIV/AIDS was getting pretty big. She said, look, the problem we have is young people are sexual. Now, what we've got to do is figure out how to tell them how to deal with it. And the thing that we might need to do is to teach them how to masturbate. Well, people lost their minds. I mean, lost their minds is that they fired her. They fired her. And I'm back to, again, the church and most people still teach that there's something wrong with that. People need to learn about, because that's why we're here, is based on that sexual energy. We need to embrace it in a way that there's something holistic about it, this is just who you are. You enjoy having sex, and there's all these different ways and things to do to have sex. But like I said, even as we're talking now, because we're talking on this very independent kind of thing, we can say it. But you better believe we've been beeped and bleeped, and none of this will get out there because we're in this Christian kind of dominated kind of culture that doesn't allow people to do their human dance.
Right. True. Very true.
So I get the sense, and now Fenway Institute, they've got to be doing something right. On their Facebook page, they got lots of fans and stuff. Is it a good place to work for?
Fenway, fabulous place. Let me tell you, Fenway is a lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender place. First, I mean, it's established so that just like you walk into a place and you assume that you're walking into a heterosexual place and you can sit with your girlfriend and put your arms around her, you can walk. Fenway is a gay and lesbian place. You walk in there, you can be a gay person, you can say and speak and be you. You don't have to do anything other than what you need to say and do as a gay person. So that's their mission, is to serve, but they also are embracing of everybody else. Now, anybody else can come in, but we're not going to let you come in and intimidate us for being same-gender loving people.
I noticed that. I noticed on the pictures, I could obviously tell that most of the people in the pictures were gay. So I noticed that they really embrace the culture. It's not just a job for them. I'm getting that sense, right? That's what.
Let me say, from all the way up to management, you get the lesbian and the gay men who are management running. Yeah, they are. Yeah, it's a gay identified agency.
I think it's important. I think it's
one of my mentors and one of the people that I most admire is Ken Mayer, and he's very out about his sexuality. This is not something that people are hiding. We're in a space where
I do think it's important. I know in the psychiatric clinical trials, a lot of the best companies out there are the ones where the doctor or someone has some kind of personal connection to mental illness. Right,
it has to be there. My hope, and I don't want to get too much of me because this is your show, Greg. But for me, I have a brother that's developmentally delayed, and he's dual diagnosis and also diagnosed with schizoaffective. And I think my connection with that whole community when I was out recruiting is because I grew up with it, and I never really thought about it. And at the time, and I'm thinking, I'm comfortable with these people. I'm comfortable with people with mental illness because I grew up with a brother that way. And we never looked at my brother as being mentally ill. He had trouble learning, and we knew that there were some things going on with him, but that was still my brother. He was part of the family, and if we got up and ran someplace, he's running right with us. Whatever we did, he's doing it right with us. So I'm comfortable with that, and I think that's where my conviction, same thing you were talking about, that's where my conviction came from, and I was able to speak from personal experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and that's an important piece. Is if you don't know about something, then yeah, it makes sense that you might not understand. You might be a little fearful of it. But if you grow up working with or being around people who have a certain kind of mental handicap, then you're not afraid of it. You get it. You realize that you just have to make adjustments to accommodate them. You know, and that it's not something so abnormal. It's just another way of having to live life.
Exactly.
Now, one of the things we do on this show, and the reason why we started this show in the first place, is to kind of dispel any myths about clinical trials that exist. So, as a person who's out there in the streets all the time recruiting people, what are some of the biggest misconceptions about clinical trials that you get, and what are your responses to them?
Okay, I'm going to say it this way. First of all, I just recruited a guy today, just made an appointment. He's coming in, but he turned to be a white man. And he too was like, I'm very concerned about receiving any kind of shots. He signed up. I was able to tell him, look, first I'm going to make the appointment. I want you to come in. When you meet your clinical contact here, you can express your fears and they will address them then. Right now, I'm glad you told me. We're going to pay you to come on in and tell us, because he had qualified. So come in, but come in with those fears. So it's not just black folk who feel this way, but I'm saying black folk have a history of just not trusting white folk.
Yes.
Indians have a history of not trusting white folk. It's just, there's just these hypocritical kind of things that have happened, so that what happens is, for black folk, it's like, in that we can't be at the beginning of this process. We can't see that you're creating something and it's designed so that it's not going to hurt. If you miss any parts of that, you figure like some white person has had their hands in there, and now it can be anti your life. I mean, that's just unfortunate, but that's what it is. But that's in any situation. If you go into any kind of job or thing where you're not in the controlling seat, where you're not controlling the purse strings, then you don't know what could have happened before it reached you. And so I think, and that's what I can say, my job becomes challenging, is because my gig is to bring black people in and to make them feel comfortable to say, no, we have, even though you look up and you see management being all white, they still are very conscientious folk. There's a thing called the Internal Review Board. They have, before I started my gig, I had to sit at a computer for 3 hours and go through an Internal Review Board procedural kinds of stuff, so that I was aware of what's put in place to make sure that we got the best interest of the consumer at place. But that's not an easy thing to express to a person when I meet them.
Right.
But I mean, but because I know and I feel like, wow, that must be a really intense conspiracy if they fooled me. But based on my training of just doing my gig, I know that there are a lot of controls in place to make sure that consumers are not getting screwed over.
Very well said, man.
Absolutely.
Don, you have any closing questions? Remember, we have that one issue. I don't know if you're aware of this, Greg, but in a lot of studies that are not targeted for HIV and that don't specifically recruit homosexuals, like let's just say a normal study like asthma, you're excluded if you're homosexual. Do you know why they do that? First of all, were you aware of that, or?
I can't say anything definitive. I think a lot of reasons people exclude people because they're homosexual has a lot to do with I think it has a lot to do with a biblical kind of perception of sexuality. I think that when you embrace your sexuality, then you get it. You understand that sex is one of those like again, tennis, basketball, it's a way of releasing yourself. But I think most of us have been raised to think of sex as being this empirical kind of thing that dominates, your whole landscape of life. If you go out there and have some sex with another man, then you are a doomed person. God can't forgive that. Sex is the worst abomination that you can have. And like I said, there's all these things in the Bible that people will try to throw in your face about it. And the Bible is a very big linchpin. So yeah, I mean, that's where we're moving to. I think that we have this HIV/AIDS thing, and I'm back to Joyce and Elders, until we finally first learn to first just communicate, not even just about sex. Most of us still communicate from behind masks. Most of us still are not comfortable with just talking honestly from where we're at, because there's a corporate kind of dynamic in place. There's a materialistic kind of thing, and a part of your whole value is that you need to make money, have a house, have a car. And if you're speaking of anything that's not in sync with that, then you're outside the norm. So that's basically what we're raised with, is that you need to conform. You need to, and when you don't, it takes a very courageous person to finally say, you know what, while you believe that and 90% of the other people believe that, fuck y'all. This is how I feel. This is where I'm at. And that's one wonderful thing about the gay community. A lot of these boys have finally said, you know what, if you don't get it, tough. You don't know what you're missing. And they go for it, you know.
Excellent closing remarks. Greg, if someone wants to get a hold of you, how do they reach you?
G. Sullivan at mac-boston.org.
And we will put the links on there. We're gonna have the masculinity video. We're gonna have a link to Fenway on there, and we'll have Greg's email as well. And Greg, we're gonna do it again, man. We can talk for hours about this, and we'll schedule a part 2 whenever you want. Okay?
And yeah, I would like to schedule a part. And what I like to do though is schedule also with some other people, because we're here in Boston, you guys in California, and there's a whole other perspective that I can't speak to. So yeah, let's figure out another time to do this. I'm looking forward to it.
That would be great. And we we appreciate all the information you just shared with the viewers and share it with us. Keep up the good work, man.
And this is Dan and Don signing off from theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Thanks a lot.
Take care, Greg.